So that was part 3 of the Urinating Tree. Welcome to part 4, the final part of this reaction video. If you have reached this, congratulations. If you haven't even seen the first 3, please go see those, and I will provide those links along the way. And here is part 4, the final part.
Okay, the goal is to do the exact opposite of what made us god-awful. Hot GM prospect and analytical savior and Jack Seren sick. Moneyball marinated manager and Don Wakamatsu. We're good to go now.
I remember when that change happened, I was like, okay, well, at least they can't really do any worse than that, so we'll see. But knowing me as a pessimist at the time, I guess still am, I didn't really have much hope.
Just don't look as former GM Pat Gillick built a World Series champion in Philadelphia.
Not only did Pat Gillick win a World Series with the Phillies in 2008, also Jamie Moyer did as well, which Bill Bavasi also gave away for nothing.
To the Philadelphia Phillies for a couple of minor league pitchers by the names of Andrew Baldwin and Andrew Barb.
Hey look everyone! Ken Griffey! He's a fossil, but nostalgia!
That was probably the most exciting moment I felt out of the Mariners since 2003 with Ken Griffey Jr. coming back. And Urinating Tree was right. It really was just nostalgia. Like, he was not really... And it's not so much that he was just a fossil. I mean, the guy got overweight. Look at the pictures between Ken Griffey Jr. in 1999 and Ken Griffey Jr. in 2009. Totally different players.
This should distract the viewing public from the fact that Eric Bedard can't stay healthy if his life depended on it. His shoulder has to meet its maker. Who did we give up for him again? All-Star Adam Jones, among other pieces. Great.
I like that expression. Great. And Adam Jones became an all-star, Chris Tillman became a decent pitcher, and George Sherrill became an all-star reliever, as if he was already decent with the Mariners at the time. Man, that was a big haul. And I also made a video of how Eric Bedard going to the Mariners, where the Mariners traded for him, turned into Yordan Alvarez going to Houston. And here's the link to that video as well.
Meet the future of Mariners baseball and Dustin Ackley, whom you can't develop worth a damn.
Dustin Ackley was actually pretty decent in his 2011 season.
It's Worley, 3-2. High drive, deep right field. That baby is out of here. First major league.
And then basically disappeared after that.
At least you aren't total garbage. You're over 500. Nowhere near the playoffs, but it's a plus. Adrian Beltre can attest. You aren't content with hitting just the fans in the dick.
And the Mariners didn't really do much at the deadline either in the 2009 deadline. If anything, they traded away Jared Washburn when he was actually doing pretty good. Like, I think they should have just actually tried to compete for the playoffs, because give Ken Griffey Jr. at least one last shot for some kind of a championship run. But nope, that didn't happen.
Jack isn't going to let the Mariners fail like Bavasi before him. The key is to do exactly what he did and throw money around. Sean Figgins is a piece that can definitely fit the second base hole. We need a legit number 2 for King Felix as well. Cliff Lee, that's the guy we need.
At least the Mariners didn't give up much for Cliff Lee, but I really thought it was a little bit random when they went out and got Sean Figgins, because I thought Jack Seren was about like saving the money, build for the future, and maybe compete, which they kind of did in 2009, but then that whole thing with signing Sean Figgins kind of just came out of nowhere. I guess he really thought that they had a chance for the division.
Turns out the Carlos Silva signing also became a Sexton-style albatross to deal with. Fortunately, the Cubs will take his uselessness on, all for the cancerous price of Milton Bradley.
Yeah, Milton Bradley didn't really turn out to much either.
Ken Griffey Jr.'s swan song is going so well that he's allegedly sleeping in the dugout and is promptly driven off to retirement land in Florida. He pulls a Seattle Pilots and leaves abruptly. A fitting end for a wasted career.
Very fitting ending, and just the way Griffey left Seattle was actually kind of hilarious, where he just jumps in his car and just drives off. And if you're looking for a more detailed analysis on that, check out this video as well, made by Secret Base about the Seattle Mariners history. Terrible history that was. And it does explain exactly what happened. And my favorite part of that video, when Griffey was driving off, was when Buhner messaged him or called him or whatever and said, "Dude, where the are you?" I wonder if Griffey didn't even answer that call or that text.
We did get one of the best prospects in baseball for trading Cliff Lee, though. First baseman Justin Smoke. whom you still can't develop worth a damn.
I actually was excited about getting Justin Smoke out of that trade because the Mariners were just a lost cause in 2010, and I was thinking, yeah, might as well just get some value out of him. And Justin Smoke did look promising, and then he didn't really turn out much either, other than maybe hitting 20 home runs in the season.
You thought you were going to be good this year, weren't you? Well, how does another 101 loss season sound? Painful? You'd think your dick would be resilient by now. It's obviously Wakamatsu's fault. Fuck that guy.
Oh, being resilient. I mean, I guess it is resilient since I'm still watching this team to this very day. And I thought it was a little bit random when they got rid of Don Wakamatsu, but I guess the team was so bad that they just had to fire someone. And if you have any thoughts on Don Wakamatsu on his time with the Mariners, go ahead and leave some stuff in the comments as well.
Yeah, Melton, you're far too much cancer for your god-awful production to deal with. Kindly get the fuck out and take your money with you to therapy.
I was actually at that game with a friend when Milton Bradley got thrown out, and it was really hilarious when he did get thrown out. And I remember my friend, he just blurted out,
"It's okay, Milton Bradley, it's just a game."
The Mariners actually won that game.
Ball game. 1-0 from Thornton. Ground ball, base hit! Brendan Ryan wins it for the Mariners!
Meet the future of Mariners baseball in Danny Hultzen. He develops Eric Bedard syndrome and his shoulder all but dies on him. Woof.
That was actually really sad because I really had hopes for Danny Hultzen being a part of the future of the Mariners, and along with other pitchers as well, such as Taijuan Walker and James Paxton. At least those two kind of panned out for the Mariners, but I really wanted to see Danny Hultzen actually do something. And this is not the first time where the Mariners had a promising pitcher in the minor league system. They also had a guy named Ryan Anderson, who was actually known as the Little Unit, who also developed injury problems as well in the early 2000s.
Young left-hander Ryan Anderson pitches 4 innings, strikes out 6, walks just 1, and the M's win 3-2. They'll open the season Tuesday night against the Red Sox at Safeco Field.
I mean, you are mediocre as hell hovering around 500, but you are only a half game back from the division lead. Look, an oasis lies before us.
And that's the game I was at, that Brendan Ryan game winner. It's almost like Urinating Tree actually knew where I was. And that 2011 season, like, it was kind of promising. Like, they were like a really scrappy young team, but they were at least hanging around with the division at least until mid-July.
The oasis is a mirage. How do you feel about 17 straight losses? You can think it over as you fall into a Sarlacc pit.
I actually felt like I was in a Sarlacc pit during that time.
With its stomach making up over half of its mass. Once swallowed, the victims were forced into one of the multiple stomachs of the underground organism. If the Sarlacc's main stomach was at full capacity, then those consumed afterwards would be sent to its smaller stomachs to be kept for later digestion.
17-game losing streak, and I was like, what? This just happened all of a sudden? Yeah, it was really painful.
We have done it, gentlemen. The Mariners have acquired one of the top prospects in baseball in Jesus Montero. He does become one of the biggest busts in baseball's recent history, but he'll keep feasting on ice cream sandwiches.
And this was after the fact that the Mariners didn't get Prince Fielder, because that was when I thought they were going to get Prince Fielder because the Angels got Albert Pujols. I was thinking, you got to sign something. You got to make some kind of big move to give some kind of hope for the Mariners, but I guess Jack Sorenzik was committed to rebuilding and didn't want to spend that money. And of course, Jesus Montero turned into nothing. He was not only useless as a catcher, he was also useless as a hitter.
Meet the future of Mariners baseball and Mike Zunino. This undercooked steak is ready for eating off the bat. Sure, it's still frozen in the middle, but the fuck do we know about prospect development?
I really like that analogy using meat where, yeah, Mike Zunino was really like raw talent, but he had great potential, but of course they rushed him and they didn't really develop him well at all. And he turned into a strikeout king as a hitter with some occasional home runs. And at least a good glove, too.
Congratulations, you give the final farewell to the wasted prime of Ichiro. Watching him in pinstripes. Shameful fucking display, Jack. The Yankees?
It was really sad that Ichiro's time with the Mariners was wasted. All that talent, and you still couldn't even win anything, and his only playoff appearance with the Mariners was 2001.
Sean Figgins has all but forgotten how to play baseball since becoming a Mariner. So you're telling me that Jack overpaid for a one-year wonder? I mean, it's not an anchor. It's even worse than that. Perhaps he can hit his golden parachute.
That's how much I don't want to talk about him.
What a stunning surprise. The Mariners are still baseball's version of constipation.
Kind of think of it, that 2013 season kind of did feel like that. It was just no hope at all, and It just felt like nothing. Like, Mariners weren't even spending money for talent. Nobody wanted to even be there. And the farm system was like pretty much dead, except like Nick Franklin and like Brad Miller, but that's all I could remember. And
gets into this and pretty good. Emery's the long run, right center field, going back, his first home run! Well hit, deep right center field. Trout giving chase, running out of room. Goodbye, a home run for Brad Miller.
yeah, nothing else really happened that season. It was pretty forgettable too.
Manager Eric Wedge smells a rat. Zarenzik has gotten drunk with power and is deflecting blame like a force field. He takes your contract extension offer and shoves it up your ass.
Yeah, Jack Zarenzik in his last days, not good with the Mariners, and he beefed with basically everyone. Heard even fired some of his best scouts too, which is why his true colors showed him how bad he really was.
You have to spend to bolster the lineup, they say. Who gives a shit if he's in his early 30s and will probably melt on the field in the second half of his contract? Robinson Cano is the true second baseman for the next decade.
I remember how excited I was getting Robinson Cano on the Mariners, but I also said that just getting him is not enough. Go out and make some more moves for the 2014 season. And did they do that? Nope.
This is finally your chance again, Mariners. The Oakland A's have gone all in yet can't stop tripping over themselves. You have the talent to make it happen. James Paxton is emerging as a legit starting option. Plus, you've wasted enough of King Felix's career. Do something good for once, please.
He couldn't be any more right. And in that 2014 season, a lot of people may say that it was the bullpen or Robinson Cano that was carrying that team. The part that I thought that was carrying that team was the starting rotation of the Mariners, where you did have Felix Hernandez in his prime, and you also had Chris Young, Rowan Elias, I guess, and a young James Paxton at the time. So I really thought 2014 was a good shot for them to make the playoffs, and Oakland was literally trying to actually hand them a playoff spot. They literally did, because they did lose their division.
In what can be described as vintage Mariners, they do just enough to pretend to be competitive, yet fail miserably to go the extra mile. You miss out on a playoff spot by a game, eliminated on the final day of the year to the A's. Cue the dick punch.
Oh, that totally was. And the game that pretty much took their spirits out was when they lost to Toronto, and Felix was pitching that game and he just got absolutely drilled. But I didn't really blame him for it because he spent the entire season carrying that entire team, and I think he was just exhausted. And I kept saying that Mariners have to secure a playoff spot early so you don't run into these kind of problems. And then Felix, he was just pretty much just done. I didn't blame him one bit for that meltdown.
Seattle now has something they haven't had in a while. Expectations. The strong season by their standards now has them thinking big. A nice contract given out to a legitimate power bat in Nelson Cruz, the continued prime of King Felix, a stud prospect in Taijuan Walker, and the most talent the organization has had since 2001. There's no way the punches break through a foot of protection.
Well, I kind of disagreed with that because although the Mariners did get Nelson Cruz, they also did lose Michael Saunders and Chris Young, so they did lose some pieces. And I didn't think Fernando Rodney was the answer, even with his 48 saves, because whenever I usually see him try to close games, he always made it dramatic where he had a guy at first or second base. So his kind of saves were stressful to watch. So I didn't really think the 2015 Mariners were going to do much at all because it was not so much of what they were getting, it was so much how much they lost and didn't improve on.
Look, everyone! Edgar Martinez! He's gonna teach hitting and shit!
I thought that was kind of random when they hired Edgar Martinez. That kind of felt more like a nostalgia move more than an actual baseball move.
Lloyd McClendon not only steals first base, he also steals your protection. Just like every other time there's hope, the fans are relentlessly punched in the dick. It's not even anywhere near hopeful, they simply disappoint. Jack Zarenzik has been revealed to be nothing more than a fraud in manager's clothing. He can take his deflecting ways to the bottom of the Pacific with all the failed prospects of seasons past. Perhaps he can develop into fish food.
I didn't really have much hope for that season anyway. Jack Zarenzik, a general manager for pretty much half a decade for the Mariners, and he was just awful. And this guy didn't really have much of a plan. He was first trying to build a farm system that he never really built, and then he tried to spend money on Sean Figgins, and then he tried to do a lot of other things, giving money to Robinson Cano, trying to get all these kind of players, and the farm system was pretty much in the tank. And I remember when some of those Mariner fans made an excuse of
well, it was really Bill Bavasi's fault. He was the one that destroyed the entire team, and Jack Zarenzik was just trying to clean up the mess, and it was just really hard to clean up.
Well, no. If you're not good at your job, you have no one to blame but yourself.
A new age of Mariners baseball begins yet again with a bounce-back year. They end on a crazy pace by going 18-9 in September. Just enough to be 3 games out of a playoff spot. Would you call this a dick punch? Probably.
Oh, that 2016 season. I can only remember that most by watching Steve Cishek of the bullpen of the Mariners just completely blowing it like so many games. And I remember that Mariners team had a great run differential, better than the Texas Rangers, and they still missed the playoffs, and the Rangers made the playoffs.
Once again, the Mariners have expectations placed upon them. Look at this great shortstop they've acquired in Gene Segura. They've even bolstered the pitching core with Drew Smyly and Giovanni Gallardo. This year is going to be great, as Smyly can't pitch and Gallardo turns into a pumpkin. Oh, it's gonna be one of those years again.
2017 was that forgettable of a season. Like, I don't even remember it. It was like a blur to me. The only thing I really remembered was Gene Segura being good and Mitch Haniger breaking out until he got hurt, but that was really about it.
Hey, look everyone! Ichiro!
Another nostalgic move.
Who knew that a guy in his mid-40s wouldn't be good at baseball anymore? Poor Ichiro. What a waste.
Gotta give him credit, though. He did keep himself in shape for pretty much his entire career in baseball, actually his entire career in baseball, and he still stays in shape to this day. It's just too bad that the Mariners just did not win with Ichiro.
You can add Robinson Cano to that list too. 80-game suspension for PEDs? Sounds like a recipe for disappointment.
I actually kind of figured that Robinson Cano was on PEDs because the man in 2016 hit 39 home runs while spending half the time at Safeco Field, well now T-Mobile Park. And when he was splitting time with Yankee Stadium, he hit at most 33 home runs. I was like, yeah, that's kind of a major red flag. And I called it. Yeah, after that, I was like, yep, I'm done with this guy. Get rid of him.
Wait a second. You aren't punching your fans in the dick? You're winning again? Sure, the run differential's disturbing. Kyle Seager is falling to shit and King Felix may be cooked, but this is so refreshing to see. 20 games over 500 and Mitch Haniger is turning into a legitimate cornerstone. You have an 8-game lead for the second wild card. At least be okay and you can finally snap the postseason drought.
I don't really know. Like, it was really nice to watch Mitch Haniger actually do something and the team actually do pretty good. And with D. Gordon, but I was thinking, it just felt too good to be true.
It has to be said that after all the dick punches, this is probably the most painful. The team reverts to mediocrity after a hot start and has a sub-500 record after the All-Star break.
After that season, I was thinking, man, just screw it. Let's just blow it up. Like, there's just no point of keeping these guys around because if they couldn't even break 90 wins with these core of players, Robinson Cano, Nelson Cruz, Felix Hernandez, what makes you think they're going to do it when they're older and then more broken? And it was really tragic the way Felix Hernandez just broke down. Like, I couldn't blame the guy. It was because of all those years of carrying the Mariners literally on his back and his arm and his shoulder, only to have a complete fallout in 2018.
They're nowhere near the playoffs. Once again outshone by, you guessed it, the fucking Athletics!
Man, wouldn't want to be his insurance carrier.
I really like that reaction. The way he just expressed it, like, it's almost like he was connecting with the Mariners on exactly how they felt when they were just getting beat up for a playoff spot by Oakland, like, literally every single time they had an opportunity.
I mean, at least there's promise for next season, you say? I'm afraid I have bad news. They blew it up. They blew it to smithereens and patched everything with whatever they found. That's a dick punch in itself.
Actually, this wasn't really much of a dick punch. Like, I was actually okay with just blowing it up and just starting it over because we never really got to see much of the full potential of what Jerry DiPoto could do with the farm system of just rebuilding it, which he didn't really do it as much other than just drafting players quietly because he was trying to compete with the core of Robinson Cano, Nelson Cruz, Kyle Seager, Felix Hernandez. But after this 2018 season, I was ready for it. And coming into 2019, I was actually really excited no matter how that team was going to do. And I actually did spend a lot of that 2019 season looking at prospects for the future. And I actually streamed into their minor league streaming services to watch the games there too.
It's time to be honest with ourselves. Was this franchise really worth saving? All of the wasted talent over the years, all of the disappointment, all of the failure. And for what? A hollow claim to a paper championship almost 20 years ago. Bravo!
He's obviously referring to 1995, which is really true because at least until 2022, the only thing that Mariner fans were really dwelling on was 95 and 2001. And it's almost like the Mariners cared more about dwelling on those than actually wanting to win. And I barely have any recollection of 1995. The only thing I remember was watching Griffey get tackled by his teammates, and I was only 3 years old. And of course, 2001 happened, but it was disappointing because they didn't even win the World Series, and that was supposed to be the goal, not just to win 116 games. I was one of the minorities that said that we really just got to move on from that and just actually demand a better winning team. And there were times I did say that, and a lot of Mariner fans on Facebook got offended by that and called me a bandwagon fan, not true fan, fair weather fan, you name it.
Maybe next time you can simply turn your fans into eunuchs so they won't have to feel pain. No wonder why Seattle gives more of a shit about the Sonics. And that team hasn't been around in a decade.
I actually told him to say that just because the Sonics actually at the time, before 2022, made it to the playoffs more recently than the Mariners did. And I'm also a big Sonics fan too, and they really should come back to Seattle, but who knows when that's ever going to happen. But we'll see. And the Seattle Supersonics still does get that nostalgic love that still holds up to this day. So that's the end of the video, and I will say that I really did enjoy making this reaction video, and I always enjoy Urinating Tree's content. It's great content because it's like the non-politically correct version of watching SportsCenter, basically. Because SportsCenter, let's face it, they're just not what they are. And he does have another video, by the way, of making fun of them as well. And he does make fun of a lot of things. And I love his non-filtering style, which really does deserve a lot of love. And not only am I going to ask you guys to subscribe to my channel, but go ahead and subscribe to his as well, as he does make excellent content, and I hope he keeps doing this for many years to come.